a man named George Tyler who put a lot of money into Garvey's hand. He was a former investor. One day, he came to see Garvey at one of the UNIA offices. George Tyler stepped in and started shooting. So as he's in there bussing, Amy Ashwood, who was only Garvey's girlfriend at the time before he married her, jumped in front of the shooter to protect Garvey and tackled him down a flight of stairs. Garvey was hit 3 times. The next day, Garvey still went to his lecture and spoke in Philadelphia, all bandaged up and everything. The UNIA was growing at an alarming rate, and the Back to Africa movement was huge. Garvey was big time. There were over 500 chapters of the UNIA. And now here comes J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover sent all types of agents to infiltrate the UNIA.
Hoover's agents were in the audience at Carnegie Hall when Garvey bragged that the UNIA would soon be strong enough to exact its own form of justice.
When those crackers lynch a Negro below the Mason-Dixon line, since it is not safe to lynch a white man in any part of America, we shall press the button and lynch him in Africa.
The agent reported that Garvey's address was met with great applause and much excitement.
Garvey felt like black folks needed their own ships. There was the White Star Line, the Irish had the Green Star Line, so Garvey created the Black Star Line. Not only just to help with transportation, but to also sell goods. The SS Yarmouth was the first ship purchased, and Garvey renamed the ship the Frederick Douglass.
Welcome to another episode of Straight Outta Politics. I'm your host for today. I am CJ, or Compton J on Twitter. I think it's Compton J on Instagram too, and TikTok. So yeah, Compton J on social media, or just J in real life. So what's up, everybody? Threw this together last minute. Woke up, and we, RBN members have a little group message chat area, and woke up to somebody saying, "Hey, Jimmy Dore, there's talk about him running for president again." And I'm like, "What?" So I look at the tweet and look at the whole thing, and when I say the whole thing, I mean Nick Brana put out a tweet talking about all of this, and I'll get into my feelings about it in just a moment. But that's how we came across this this topic and why I'm even here streaming. So let's put up the graphic. The presidential candidate. So we're going to explore this topic and some of the subtopics of Jimmy Dore being a candidate. The first thing would be, which party should he run under? And then I guess why, or would you support a candidate like Jimmy? And then I do want to take a look at some of people that might be the type that would support Marianne Williamson, and view some of their opinions, like Jen Perlman. She has a podcast. We'll look at a clip of her talking about this subject of Jimmy Dore running for president, because this is not the first time Movement for a People Party made this announcement last time, and this time it was Nick. So they put out something about it, and also David Pakman put out a short. So we'll watch a short of David Pakman talking about the subject, and then Jim Perlman. But some of the other topics, there's 3 important articles I want to cover. One from antiwar.com. House overwhelmingly approves resolution to maintain Syrian sanctions after earthquake. So everybody knows or have heard about the earthquake in Syria, and there was talk about the sanctions being ridiculous. Why don't you lift them? So supplies. That's not what the elected Democrats and Republicans bipartisan vote. This is one of the most bipartisan votes I've ever seen to keep the sanctions on people who have just gone through a massive earthquake. And I think they're up to 30. I know they passed 30,000. I can't even think where they're at as far as the death toll. And then there's an article out on The Guardian titled, "Has Bernie Sanders Really Helped Joe Biden Move Further Left?" We'll also cover that article. And let's see what else is in the description. I'm forgetting one thing. Yeah, right here. Black Agenda Report article titled "East Palestine, Ohio, and the Oligarchy." It explores why behind the why of Ohio. Is written by Margaret Kimberly, friend of the show. Actually, she has been the person that has actually been on RBN the most, is Margaret Kimberly. So those are the topics we're going to be checking out today. Let's see what everybody is saying in the chat before we get started. So let's read this here from James Morrow, and for those who know, we already know who James is. So yeah, there it is. James is he's a if we're being nice, let's say he's a regular dissenter. Let's say it that way. He's a regular dissenter. So Dore is a Putin and Assange apologist and spreads disinformation about COVID and vaccination. He's not left. Okay. Okay, Jimmy, run for the fart joke party. Here we go. I kind of don't want him to run because he doesn't seem at all that healthy as it is, and I don't want him to see, and I don't want to see him go too early to an early grave. I'm sorry. By the way, if he could just get 1%, that would be phenomenal. Okay, only if he cut the check for reparations, and that's Ricky Jones. Can anyone tell me where to click to find latest Nick at Night? I can't find, let me see here. Nick at Night. I'm trying to just think off the top of my head. I might not be able to know this off the top of my head. Of what exactly? How does it show up on our page? So I'll direct you in 1 second, but let me actually go. I know you can't see this part that I'm going to my page, but so I can direct you. So under playlists, I'll tell you the name of the playlist to find the Nick at Nights. Let me see. There should be 2 playlists you can find the Nick at Night. And one is, where is it? Nick Interviews and Conversations. So if you go to our YouTube channel, the actual page where you can see the tabs, the home videos, the shorts, and live, under playlists, you go to Nick Interviews and Conversations, go to that playlist. And that's where you can find all of, most of, some of them we may have not added, like some of the older content may not have been added to this playlist before we were doing it. But most of the last year, Nick's content, anything that he's done by himself without an RBN member, would be there. So yeah. All right. A lot of this is going to be interesting. I can tell there's some yay Jimmies and some nay Jimmies, so there's going to be a lot of is already a lot of conversation already going on, and we're only 10 minutes, 11 minutes into the show. So good to see the lively conversation. All right, so glad that sparks conversation. All right, so we are at 200 viewers, a little over 200 viewers. So hit that like button. Can we get to 200 likes, please? The next thing, Substack. Notifications when we go live, like this live stream. Like if Nick goes live tonight, I'm not quite sure because he is preparing to fly out to Seattle. So not quite sure if he's going to be doing one tonight. But join our Substack for when we do have live streams or clips. You'll get notifications sent directly to your email. Thank you for those that recently subscribed and those that are watching now that may have subscribed today. Welcome. We are now past 31,500. Thank you. And the next target is RBN to 50K. And we're hitting that like button to get us to 200 likes. Let's strive to get there, people. And then here is our website revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com for those listening, and email info@revblacknetwork. And here's a new thing. We have a new feature. You can join. You may see a join button next to the video, may or may not. You may see a join, or you can go to our page and see and locate the join button to join. YouTube memberships, we only have one level. We haven't sat down and had the time to discuss the different levels we want to do and the details. So right now we're just doing one until we get to that point. $3.99. And welcome to all those new members that we have been subscribing. It's surprisingly a good amount of people. And I see a lot of members here. Welcome all those members that are here in the chat. And again, we're hitting the like button to get to 200. And now let's get into the story of Jimmy Dore running. And how we're going to start off is going over, I think I have it in my, let me see if I have it in my, going over the release. I don't know if it's a press release really, but the announcement, I guess, is the better way of saying it. Let me see if I have it here. All of this stuff is for the story we're covering now. I think it's here. Here it goes. So we'll go here and read this. I'm going to blow it up real big so it's easily viewable from your phone, because I know a lot of people watch this show on their phone or just watch YouTube on their phone. So let's make it extra large for those that are on their phone. So I guess I can call this push for Jimmy Dore 2024. I guess I can rhyme. We can go with that announcement, because this isn't him announcing. This is a push for him, sort of trying to get him to run. And broadly speaking, let's take a broad stroke or a broad stab at this first. Hang on, let me make sure my RBN chat hasn't said nothing to me. So let's take a broad look at 30,000 feet. Is that the same? Is there 50,000 feet, 60,000 feet? Maybe it's one of those, but one of the thousand. So 50,000 feet. Let's go with that. A 50,000 feet view. Look, where did I type that? At Jimmy Dore, the candidate, because there's a couple of things, and that's why right out the box, and I'm looking at this from 30,000 feet. First thing, a Jimmy Dore candidacy cannot be attached to the Movement for a People's Party. That's step one. step one, I'm going to say it again, is a Jimmy Dore candidacy cannot be attached to Movement for a People's Party. There's a couple of reasons. One, Movement for the People's Party doesn't have ballot access. So I don't know how he would run. Is this camera clean? Sorry. Because Movement for a People's Party doesn't have ballot access. But the other thing is, Movement for a People Party is swimming in a sea of mismanagement and failed leadership. So those are the two reasons you don't, or he should not run under Movement for the People's. I mean, it's not even should. It's the reason why he's not going to run for the under the Movement for the People's Party is because they don't have ballot access. And then two, it would be absolute suicide to run under this party or this Movement for a People's Party. That's not even a party, but a Movement for a People's Party, knowing all of the financial trouble and problems and secrecies and issues they've had. So ain't nobody sending money to a Jimmy Dore candidacy knowing it's tied to these corrupt leadership at the top of MPP. I mean, Nick Brana has his dad over the money or something like that, which is absurd. So that's the first thing. So barring that, so setting that as just understanding that, so MPP moving forward is not part of the conversation. This is the part of the conversation we're saying this is a non-starter for me if it's part of the MPP. I mean, he can't, and we'll get to a video. I think David Pacman brings it up. Like MPP doesn't have any access in any state, so he can't. But I'm also saying he shouldn't. So either way, take either one, either one. But let's go to the and the other thing I should say is this, because I don't want to have to double back to the Movement for a People's Party. So let's get all of their stuff out. Movement for a People's Party. Oh, what was I just about to say about them? Yeah, let's move on. Oh, no, here we go. Now, from the point of view of Nick Brana and why he's trying to make this seem like something legitimately that's going to happen, which if I had to guess, I would guess that this is closer to not happening to happening. That would be my guess. But the reason he's trying to paint the picture is because of the branding of MPP. Nick, with the Rage Against the War Machine rally and this push with Jimmy Dore, is trying to whitewash MPP and all of the bad news coverage they had the last time that anybody was even talking about them. So from their point of view, this is not about change, and it's not about any of that. This is about rebranding Nick Brana and MPP. That's what this is about. Along with the Rage Against the War Machine was another play at that. Although I'm not saying everybody's motive was that. I'm talking about Nick Brana and his participation. This is what I'm talking about. Not anybody else. So let's now that I said all of that, now let's read what it's saying here. huge Dore 24 update. Right before the Rage Against the War Machine rally, Jimmy Dore told me that he's going to run for president of the United States. Let's continue. Here is what he says as a quote. People are ready and desperate. And I'm saying what he says is a quote because this guy's a known liar. You understand? He is a known habitual liar. So I'm just going to say, he claims that this is a quote. Okay. People are ready and desperate for an honest, unbought candidate that unites the working class and people that span the entire left-right political spectrum based on shared values and a common enemy, the oligarch, end quote, he said. He wanted to announce it soon after the rally. I was incredibly proud of him. He was finally answering the call of thousands of people who have cheered for him to run at every live stream and stand-up show across the country since last summer. He was recognizing his unique ability to bring left and right together to stop this war, get health care for all, and end homelessness and raise wages. He was putting the people of this country before himself like a great leader. It was going to be bigger than Bernie 2016, a real revolution. So here is the part where this is just selling. This is him blowing this up, making this bigger than, in my opinion, what this is. So that's this part here is just adding a little, adding a little salsa on top to get a little extra flavoring. He's adding here. I don't buy that for a second. But then Jimmy's wife, Steph Zamorano, who I've known for years and love, told him that she would rather he not run. But Jimmy also said that maybe they could be convinced and he could justify running if he could think of something positive and concrete that would come out of him running. End quote. Now, again, the only way Jimmy Dore should run for any office is not as an MPP, as a strategic reason. That should be the reason he should not. MPP has been mired with just so many problems, and a lot of the leadership is still there. So now, as a matter of functionality, they don't have ballot access, so it's not even possible for him to run as MPP. Sorry, lost my spot. Here we go. That's why Jimmy Dore and Steph need to hear from you. Make a video of yourself or tweet telling them what good it would do for them to run. What difference would it make in your life? Tag them both and use Dore 24. I knew that Bernie's first campaign would be huge from the moment he announced. I went to his first rally in a small union hall in Maryland and joined the campaign in 2015. Jimmy's campaign will be even larger. Like, this guy, even for MPP wanting to run it, Nick Brana is so not the person who should be delivering this message. Like, just knowing he is the person who's writing these words as I'm reading it, it's like knowing the corrupt POS he is, I'm not buying some of the fervor. I'm not buying it. You get what I'm saying? Because he's not the right messenger to deliver anything. They need to hire a comms person. He needs to literally stop tweeting and be quiet if there's any hope for MPP doing anything. And and at this point, I don't see any hope because he refuses to step aside and step away. So he is the anchor that's never going to allow MPP to do anything. Not until he's gone. So, like this, like knowing who is the speaker of this, like what does that do? After Bernie was cheated in 2016, I urged him to run as an independent and blow up the two-party system. Now he did it. Not Chris Hedges and Shama Sawant, but Nick Brana urged Bernie to run. The self patting on the back as he's trying to make the announcement. This is why I said I'm not sure this is a real thing. This feels like again a push to whitewash himself and MPP. Because it's not that he should be convinced to run for MPP. He's not mentioning that. So in his mind, I guess it's automatic, and maybe they've talked. I don't know if it's automatic. That if he's run, I don't know why. I don't understand any benefit that Jimmy sees with running under MPP. I don't understand that. No ballot access. The last time people even can talk about it, it left a bad taste in people's mouths. Like, I just don't understand how you would see any benefit in running with this group. He walked right up to the line of being a real revolutionary, and then he blinked. It's hard to read this coming from this freaking piece of shit. He walked right up to the line of being a real revolutionary. And then he blinked. Like Cornel West said to Jimmy and me in 2017, Bernie missed his moment. All right, let's see if he gets through his pat on his back, if we can get through this. But now we don't need Bernie because Jimmy Dore has the power to blow up the two-party system, and I will be damned if we miss our moment again. As Jimmy told AOC during Forced to Vote, the biggest abuse of power is failing to use the power you have. Jimmy and Steph, you're on the cusp of changing millions of lives for the better. I haven't seen anyone inspire the love and confidence that you do in people since Bernie. People trust you because they know you're genuine. They know you care about them. They can feel it in your sense of outrage at the way people have to live in this country. Steph, Jimmy needs you with him to do this. I was there at the forced to vote town when you sat by him, tears in your eyes as you both. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do this. Not with him. Okay. Well, actually, it's very close to the end, so let me just take a break. It's nauseating thinking that this person, this filthy, disgusting person, is the one who's saying this stuff. Failed leader guy. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get through this shit. I haven't seen anyone inspire the love and confidence that you do in people since Bernie. People trust you because they know you're genuine. They know you care about them. They can feel it in your sense of outrage at the way people have to live in this country. Steph, Jimmy needs you with him to do this. I was there at the forced to vote town when you sat by him, tears in your eyes, as you both told the story of when Jimmy's spine collapsed, as you shared what it's like to be driven to medical bankruptcy in the richest country in the world. You can help spare millions of people from having to go through what you did. Just this Monday, you talked on the show about how this country is ready for an independent president and wore the Dore 24 necklace that Laura made you. I believe you too, and so countless, I think it's so do countless, or so countless thousands of others. Everyone tag Jimmy and Steph and tell them what good will come from them running for president. So make sure when you tag them and you have Dore 24 that you say in your tweets that you can't be associated with Nick Brana. So let's move forward in the analysis of this. I'm just ingesting this person here. All right, so let's go to comments. That'll help me get out of focus with this guy. So I'll go to a couple of members here. Here goes one. Brana doesn't have personality, will have to be a politician, so needs other people to help him make that cash. And this is what I wanted to say. Like, it can't be MPP, and Nick Brana cannot be at all involved in any of the campaign, specifically the funding, at all. And it feels like, from Nick Brana's point of view, this is a cash push. This is a push to get cash, because he's not getting money donated to his clown show anymore. And I'm talking about the nationwide MPP. There's local MPP chapters that does great work. It's always the nationwide group that's the problem. Same with DSA. Let's read some more. Oh God, this is too much. Okay, so some of you felt the same. Not a lot, but a couple of you felt the same. Ventura is into test. Oh, I thought that was saying something about Ventura, but I don't remember. I can see it is painful for you to read this. It is. It's very painful to hear this, how he's describing it, when I know this corrupt person is who he is. I wish Cornel West would run for president. I mean, he's a good. Cornel West is not as radical as I would like, but yeah, he's better than what they're saying. Like, for what they're saying as far as what Marianne Williamson is supposedly doing, challenging him, Cornel West would have a challenge for the Ukraine war. So I would like to see a Cornel West Chris Hedges ticket. Or even a Jimmy Dore Chris Hedges ticket. I like that one. Jimmy Dore, Chris Hedges. What's wrong with that? I mean, run them in the whoever, I don't know what party, whoever has the better access. I don't know who would have the better access, to be quite honest with you. Is it the Greens? I know the Libertarians have, but I wouldn't tell him to run for the Libertarian. I said the Green Party when we were talking about it in the RBN member chat. I said, "What about the Green Party?" And Nick was like, "I don't think he has a problem me sharing it." Nick was like, "I don't think Jimmy would run there, considering the Green Party stance on COVID." And I didn't say this to him, to Nick, but now that I thought about it, I mean, if I was Jimmy, I would. I mean, why couldn't Jimmy just run as I'm not that. All of what was voted, I don't know what they decided on, but I don't get, like, it's individual opinions about COVID and vaccinations. I don't think there should be a party stance on vaccination, not necessarily. But if you're aligning yourself with the working class, it should be there's no restrictions or anything like that. But I would like to see that would be good. I'm not a Tulsi person. I don't consider Tulsi. Am I saying it right? Tulsi. I don't consider her a real person. I consider her on the level like a David Pacman. I don't consider her a serious person at all. Dore and Nixon. Where did that go? Nixon. Who's Nixon? Maybe I'm forgetting. Maybe I have a brain fart. Brain fart. Sometimes I say fart that way. Brain fart. Did he run? Oh, I don't. Maybe have Jimmy at the top of the ticket and have Hedges as a VP. That would be a great anti-war coalition. I think that would be good. But maybe if we're trying to be maybe anyway, that just different people. Jill Stein would also be a good VP candidate or top of the ticket candidate, whichever. So I think that would be good. All right, so let me now show you David Pacman's short, since it's a short, where he talks about this idea. Now this is, I don't think this is a newer one, because it popped up in my feed. Is this a newer one? It could be the last time they were talking about him do this. But I think you can.
Really weird.
Good evening. Every teacher that has a pride flag in their classroom should be fired. And
wait a minute here. Sorry, everybody. Let's try that again. So let's go to YouTube to watch David Pacman's video. I think you can see it here.
Good evening. Every teacher that has a pride flag in their classroom should be fired and arrested.
Not it. Okay, so where is it? Let's see. Let's get the link again. I think. Okay, here goes the right link now. I clicked something with my wireless.
Really weird Jimmy Dore story that I thought was satire. I guess Jimmy Dore is thinking about running for president with the People's Party, which doesn't have ballot access in any states, and says that Ralph Nader is going to be advising his campaign. That's the story. It seems like it would be satirical. I saw a hilarious article saying Jimmy Dore would be the most popular comedian to run for president. Is that meaningful? I don't even understand. Is okay. I also know a guy who is the most skilled plumber to run for president. But is that, I mean,
this guy, I'm laughing not because he's making good points. I so consider David Pakman a comedian. Like, he is so funny because I don't take him seriously at all. It's almost like what he says is so funny to me and how he says it. That's why I'm laughing. So, but let's finish watching.
I mean, how is that relevant to the job? It's all very strange. Maybe it's just a joke. I don't know, but we'll follow.
I don't care how.
Let's watch.
Really weird Jimmy Dore story that I thought was satire. I guess Jimmy Dore is thinking about running for president with the People's Party, which doesn't have ballot access in any states.
Doesn't have ballot access in any states. The point that I was making earlier. So really running as MPP that's why I'm not sure if this is just a Nick Brana publicity stunt, and Jimmy being his friend and just allowing him to use his name as this publicity stunt. Or if this is serious. Like, it's hard to tell. It seems like if it was serious, he would be clear that he's not going to do it with MPP. Like, to me, that would seem to be it, considering not unless you're using this just as a campaign to spread policy messages, not necessarily like you're really running. Because they don't have ballot access. You can't run as a People's Party candidate. There is no People's Party. And I'm not necessarily the biggest fan in this convince people to run thing. I'm not the biggest fan of that. But let's listen.
Dore story that I thought was satire. I guess Jimmy Dore is thinking about running for president with the People's Party, which doesn't have ballot access in any states, and says that Ralph Nader is going to be advising his campaign. That's the story. It seems like it would be satirical. I saw a hilarious article saying Jimmy Dore would be the most popular comedian to run for president. Is that meaningful? I don't even understand.
That's very funny. I'm gonna move to the next video. And I mean, Dick Gregory, and a lot of people under 50 or 60 may not even know who Dick Gregory is, but Dick Gregory, who was a comedian turned political activist, ran for president many times. And I think there's been a couple of other people who has run for president. So I'm not sure. I don't know if you would put Jimmy Dore's popularity above Dick Gregory. I wouldn't necessarily think anybody would. It is what it is. Anyway, let's go to the next video, which is Jen Perlman. I think that's how you say her name. And she talks about this topic also, along with her sidekick person. And let's get his name. Let's not call him out of his name. So but it's her co-host person. Does it have his name right there? I don't see his name there yet. But we will listen to it. Do they have his name in a description box? Let me see. No, they don't have his name in the description box. So I'm sure one of you or some of you in the chat know who Jen Perlman's co-host is here. We'll get to that in a second. But let's listen to what they say about the idea. And as we're listening, understand, when I was watching their content, this video we're about to watch, I was thinking to myself, I had some of the same reactions that they're having of Jimmy Dore, I had of them. So ahead of the person they would back. So let's listen.
For those of you who still think that the People's Party is a real thing, and that's going anywhere,
I just hate when we mention it because I don't like giving him screen time.
Jimmy Dore's running for president.
She is such an unhappy hag. She all in these, when she doesn't have a politician or a special guest on who she deems as having some sort of prominence, like if she's has Nina Turner, she's gonna act a certain way. But when she just has regular Joe Schmoes on, she's very unhappy. She's very unhappy with her responses and how she talks. I don't know if that's just how she is. But yeah, let's listen.
President of the United States. I had a light up for that one.
But it's I'm having trouble dragging.
Wow, that laugh went away. That genuine laugh went away real quick when she started talking. That was a deep laugh that she was trying to make. She would need to have caught her breath. She was able to go right into those words, huh? As if it wasn't a real laugh, like it was a little exaggerated. I'm petty, but let's go.
I'll hold it for
you. Jimmy,
it's having trouble dragging.
They're gonna get to
it's so ridiculous.
That's for you, Jimmy.
Oh my God!
Let them do
well, it just really goes to show you that party is just a farce. That's not a real thing.
Who is taking this seriously?
They're not. They're just trying to be spoilers. That's the whole point.
No, and again, at least somebody like Jesse Ventura, you can see where people would get excited about him and donate to him and say
he was a governor.
Yeah,
like he actually has held the executive position over
the most common
government.
The most common position.
How does that not apply to Marianne Williamson? What has she done? Jimmy Dore is a comedian. How did David Pakman describe her? She's Deepak Chopra. So what's the difference here?
That a president holds
is governor
overwhelmingly. This is why a lot of people think DeSantis is going to be the next president. Governor, by an overwhelming margin, is the elected position of the person who becomes president of the United States. Senator, yeah, it's happened. Vice president, obviously, but
governors are definitely in a position. I don't hate him as much as people think that we should. No, I just don't.
But again, the only reason why Jimmy would do this and is being propped up by Nick Brana to do this is to make money.
Now, this point, I agree with a slight difference. I would take Jimmy out. Nick Brana is doing this to make money. He's pushing this so he want to get his hands on some loot. That's Nick Brana's reasoning for really coming out and kind of pushing this and trying to really push Jimmy to do this. Let's continue.
Oh my God, it's such a grift.
Could you imagine Jimmy running for president and just going around and doing his thing and people come out and they give him the money?
Although what scares me is we said that about Trump and then look.
Totally different circumstance.
I know.
Totally different circumstance. Jimmy Dore doesn't. Donald Trump was known the world over when he ran for president. Some people know who Jimmy Dore is, but nothing at that level.
It's a small echo chamber.
And not the ability to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. But let's say Jimmy does run for president and raises, I don't know, $15, $20 million. That would be really impressive, but that's just a way to make money. That's what it is.
Enough people will jump on that.
And enough to write a book. And they'll make money.
It seems like he's describing Marianne Williamson to me. enough to write a book. This is why I like getting these videos that are a couple of months old. Because then we have the benefit of time elapsing. Because at the time, did they know Marianne Williamson would be running for president when they were making these statements and challenging him in the way that they are, not understanding that the same challenges can be applied to Marianne Williamson?
Make money off writing a book.
But the whole point is, it's a grift. It's
Anybody
a grift.
who would be taking this seriously, and I mean anybody who would be taking Jimmy Dore running for president seriously, yeah, maybe that is why Jimmy would run for president again. Maybe he needs a new house. I don't know.
So somebody in the comments put, Dore needs a new house, apparently. And that's the reason why they're saying he's doing this.
Oh, Brandon, I don't know what Jimmy is, but I know he's somebody who only thinks about the bottom line. That's for sure. And just to remind people, because I love bringing this story up anytime Jimmy does some crap
I hate even mentioning him. I truly do, because I feel like, why do we even have to acknowledge it? It's so stupid.
This was a big story that came out.
You see how all the time she chimes in, it's like a comment like that? She is such an unhappy person. Like every time she chime in, it's like that type of chiming in. Yeah. This is such a weak intellectually argument. So let's just blow this feather down. Like RBN totally embraced Zainab, it's spelled with a Z, Z-E-Y-N-A-B, who is incredibly sus, but Brana is persona non grata. Why is that? Zainab, if you're talking about Zainab being a victim, that's not in the realm of politics or corruption, Paul. So I'm sorry to offend you to critique corrupt Nick Brana that you think this is a point. But Zainab was a victim who was making accusations against Nick. That is a separate thing from politics, which is also a separate thing from corruption. Or it can't overlap, but in this case, it's a separate thing. So if you are saying she's incredibly sus on her allegations against him, then I'm not on board with that. If you're saying she's incredibly sus in her political views and her jumping from from one political organization for another, okay, I'm kind of on board with that. She is suspect on political views. Absolutely, I'm on board with that. So depend on what you're saying. And Nick Brana is garbage and has the critique that, and I have the critique that he has because he's corrupt. You see how, one, I'm defending a victim whose political views, that are suspect in Z, and two, is a cringy, despicable person who's corrupt and stealing money. So that offends you, it offends you. It is what it is. Let's continue.
Came out today that the People's Party are sending out fundraising emails saying, hey, we got to get Jimmy Dore to run for president.
Wow, I did not know that. And I'm on their mailing list because I used to believe in the People's Party when they first launched. And, the whole, when Nina Turner was what was that called? The convention they had. Nina Turner was there and spoke. Chris Hedges was there. Jimmy was there. We were called FHL at the time. Were we FHL yet? But it was close to being that. But anyway, we were on board. Yeah, totally on board. And then life happened, and then all the corruption started to appear with the group. So, you know, it is what it is.
Well, let me remind you all
Please
that
do
Jimmy
that.
Dore came down here at the end of 2019 for a comedy show in Miami.
I think people.
Now we're going to hear the real reason why they're peeved at Jimmy. It has nothing to do with his politics. It has nothing to do with whether or not he will be a good candidate or not. Nothing to do with even MPP and Nick Brown for that matter. Nothing. Completely self-serving reason. And let's listen.
I think people have heard this story now.
It's been a while since I've told it.
All right,
we got
Peter
some new
loves this
people
story.
here. And there was a lot of people there. Jimmy's got supporters. He probably had a good 400 people, you'd say, in the room.
And it was like not in our district, but right next to our district.
Right next
like
to
a
it.
lot of
10
local
minutes
people.
outside,
It was all
absolutely.
local people.
The show lasted for 2 hours, and an hour of it was spent bashing Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Which is good. I mean, it's righteous, you know. I mean, I have no problem with that righteous.
So you mean a comedian who was in Florida, in Debbie Wasserman Schultz district, you mean a comedian who's traveling around, studied the area he's going to, and crafted his material for that area? That's crazy to you?
Righteous anger.
But never once did he mention, and he knew that Jen Perlman was in the audience, not that far from him, running against Debbie. Did not feel the need to mention that they're in Debbie's territory and that somebody's actually running for Congress. But he did feel the need to announce.
So they showed up, and walk with me with this analogy. Jen Perlman is Stacey Abrams. Jimmy Dore is Joe Biden in this scenario. Remember that interview she went on, and she thought she was like, "Oh, he's about to ask me to be vice president." And then as the interview, and it was a joint interview, Joe Biden, as the interview went on, you realize he's not asking. That's the vibe I get here.
To announce that Tim Canova was there. Not feel the need.
That she showed up. Jen Perlman, I have to hear his voice. It's weird how I have to hear a sound and it'll jog my memory of what I was just gonna say. Jen Perlman is Stacey Abrams showing up to the interview, and Jimmy Dore is Joe Biden, who clearly says, what? I don't think so. So she is perturbed. She is upset that she didn't get a shout out like that shit would have made a difference in her election. So she's mad. You see how it's all personal. It has nothing to do with policy for none of these professional managerial classes. So let's I think this is let's get through some more of this.
Need to mention that they're in Debbie's territory and that somebody's actually running for Congress. But he did feel the need to announce that Tim Canova was there and to get up and take a bow to the crowd.
It was hilarious. It was the most, these are very self-important people. That's what I think. It's just, that was when I knew that the whole thing with Jimmy and that whole thing, that they don't really stand for anything. They don't really mean anything. They just want clicks.
Because they didn't shout her out, they don't really mean anything. That's what she says.
It's just angry and belligerent. They don't have desire to really do change. They're just angry and grifting. And I knew that because you come into our town and sit there and talk crap about the person who's the representative here because she does suck. I mean, she sucks. And then don't acknowledge that there's somebody running against her that's on policy with you, on par with everything you believe, and you don't even.
But you're not. We have to stop saying this about progressives, that we agree with, 80, 90%. We don't, actually. You are only including the 7 or 8 pop culture topics. There's something like 300 topics. So we don't agree on the majority of things. We don't.
Even bring that up. We could have probably scooped up a dozen of volunteers that night. Easy.
Just by Jimmy saying,
so Jimmy is now a part of her campaign. That's what happened. Jimmy didn't get the memo when he landed in Florida. You are now a surrogate for Jen Perlman. Okay.
Perlman running against Debbie Wasserman-Schultz. Give us
and then
love.
Not only didn't he do that, but then he never mentioned us the entire time we were running. He ghosted us. And not only did he ghost us, but then that sort of downplayed to all his little like content creator minions, and they ghosted us.
Ghosted you, or you was just trash? The power you're trying to give to Jimmy as getting people to ghost you when you just can't reflect on the fact that you're just trash. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's, that's not somebody who's on the team of progress.
No.
And I knew that then.
You had to know, because again, there's this thing where everyone's thinking, well, Jimmy had it out with the Young Turks, and that must mean that Jimmy's the good guy. You know, in many instances, fellas, there are no good guys.
Oh, I can tell you that very, very clearly. There's a lot of instances where there's no good guys.
So trying to always find, Trump's the good guy because he's fighting against the establishment. How about none of them are good?
They're all bad.
Like,
it's a full bowl of shit, people.
Bernie is great, but Bernie is not willing to go where he needs to go.
No, he's not.
And that's the difference. And you want to call Bernie all kinds of names because
Jesse Ventura would, though.
Jesse Ventura would go.
Like Jesse Ventura on a debate stage with Joe Biden would have absolutely called him out on everything. No doubt in my mind, he would have called him out. Whereas Bernie wouldn't do it. And Joe flat out lied.
Radical leftist agenda. No one is debating that Jimmy Dore is not better than the Democratic establishment.
But wait. That's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Better than in what way? The Democratic establishment is sitting in an electoral political position that's stifling all of us. Jimmy is sitting there screaming to not even be involved with them whatsoever, even though there is no other real venue there. They are not getting a presidential candidate on the ballot in 24. They haven't had ballot access in any state. They've been around for 5 years. How long has it been?
Oh, yeah. So they say it here, too. They don't have ballot access. So that's why I don't think this is even a thing of going through MPP. They don't have ballot access. So that's a key thing to sort of you got to have in order to run is ballot access. So look at these notes. Looks like I have a couple of super chats. I will get to those in just a moment here. Okay. I starred all three of them. All right, so let's finish out so I can finish up here.
We had a show, go back and look at it, where we spoke with somebody who was one of the original volunteers on their on the People's Party movement. And what they did was nothing. They had plenty of time to have candidates.
And let's remember something too. And this is something we could definitely say about Jimmy. He's been very adamant about the fact that he will not platform anybody within the Democratic or Republican Party. Okay, fine. There are countless seats that are nonpartisan, including a very important seat in Los Angeles that just went to an amazing non-corporate activist leader in Ken Mejia. Somebody who ran in the Green Party twice, got the nomination last election cycle against Jimmy Gomez, was very competitive going to the general, and now he's going to be the comptroller of Los Angeles. Why didn't Jimmy ever mention this guy? You want to bring change that's outside the two-party system? This is how you do it. I mean, to me, that to me is everything.
It's such take a personal offense to someone who refuses to participate in the electoral process. You get what I'm saying? Like, That's insane that you take this level of offense of somebody saying, I'm not doing that. And this in lies the reason why it's so hard for the professional managerial class to even reach out to the working class, to even team up for the working class, because this is the part that they don't get. In order to get the things you need, you're going to have to do something outside of the system, outside of waiting for the designated day to go to a place and write your name or check the people you want. That's the part they don't quite get. But let's listen.
City council, county commission,
They really
school
are
board,
important.
mayor. These, in many ways, like these two young gentlemen, Sam Cow and Sam Lawrence, who came on tonight.
How cute were they?
Like, awesome kids.
Love those boys. I
No
like
more
all
fun.
these kids that are so into. I love those guys locally. We have young people locally that amaze me.
And again, Maoist, now you're getting into semantics. We understand what you're saying.
Oh, let me wait. So maybe because the last two comments maybe not have been kind of pushback against what both of these people are saying. So let's read what this person says in the comments, or as the comment they put up. Change, a right-wing populist is still better than a neoliberal Democrat. I don't think that's a thing. Right-wing populism is not a thing in my opinion.
What you're saying.
I agree.
The system is still corrupt to the core. And if you want to change it, you must elect non-corporate representatives. You must do outside work like mutual aid. You must be willing, as our good.
You see how the professional managerial class has picked up the mutual aid. Now they're going to be including that. This is what they do to stay relevant, because their politics is really status quo. But to stay relevant, they pick up on language cues so that they sound like they're up to date.
Our good friend Jordan Chariton of Status Quo mentioned, you have to be doing economic boycotts. That's how you really get
I
change.
don't have a problem with conservative people. I don't at all have a problem with conservative people. We've had this discussion many times on this show. We'll have people on.
They go back to Jimmy. I'm waiting for them to go back to Jimmy because I really.
They are.
Yeah.
That's how things are going to get done, because the reality is, Trumpers, if they are supporting labor and they're fighting for unionization and they're out marching with like your John Deere workers or your coal miners, then yeah, I don't care if they're Trump supporters. We're all fighting for labor. This is the problem. And I think it's a bigger problem on the left. So yes, I agree. And I wouldn't say I agree with the whole idea that right-wing populism. It's just a matter of, if somebody is socially conservative versus socially liberal, that is really not my concern right now. We're in a dire situation, and all of the working people need to unite against the top people.
Yeah.
That's what a revolution is. That's what needs to happen. And instead, they have us punching left and right and kicking down.
And listen, if you
We're very distracted.
And listen, I've listened to Jimmy for years, and he still does really great bits. You know, his show is entertaining. He does have righteous anger. I have no doubt that most of it is real, but Jimmy's a businessman.
I don't dislike him because of his political or social beliefs.
Jimmy,
I dislike him because I think he's a grifter.
Jimmy does what he does because he's going to go wherever the most money is to be made.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how people at this point can't see that. And Sam Cedar was right to bring it up. Well, we knew this was coming, that Jimmy was going to try something like this. How could you not see it happening? How could you not see that if Jimmy knows that he can make a few $1 million running for president, why would he not do it?
Which to me makes him be exactly the same as Trump, because basically
Totally the same.
I don't know how they have regular viewers or watchers of this stuff, because it's really bad. But I wanted that whole argument to play because that's the same argument we're saying about Marianne Williamson. So we'll see what their take is. I think Marianne Williamson went on her show to do an interview, but I haven't watched it. But we'll see what their take is on Marianne Williamson. Because a lot of the same stuff that they're saying about Jimmy, and I think it's misplaced, that applies to Marianne Williamson. That she's a grifter, that she is doing this for the money, gonna be writing a book. You mentioned that earlier. These are all the same things that Nick and I have been, and Savvy also have been saying throughout these streams on the topic. Is there more? I really don't want to go back. Yeah, let's close this. I really don't want to go back to these people and listen to any more. Let me see if I'm going to play the Sam Cedar video. I just want to see how long it is. I don't want to prolong this too much. The Sam Cedar video, I don't recall the length. And let me just see. Meanwhile, we're at 317 likes, 317 likes, and we got 450 people watching. Can we get another 100 people hit the like button? Get us to 415. 415 is absolutely reachable. 100 people hit that like button. Here's our website, revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com. Here is our email, info@revblacknetwork.com. And let me see the video. Oh, no. Now I remember what I was
really weird Jimmy Dore.
The Vanguard boys. I had to wait for them to last because their live overlap with mine. Like when I started live, they were just going into the segment about Jimmy. So I knew they would be done after. So, and they did a segment on David Pakman. It says David Pakman smears Marianne Williamson. So very interesting. But we're going to skip over the Marianne Williamson part and maybe we'll cover that later because I watched some of it and there's absolutely stuff in it I would definitely push back on. But we're adding this part to the Jimmy Dore segment. And from the history I know, I don't think they like Nick Brana and MPP from the history that I believe I know. But let's go into what they say.
Watch unfold if it actually goes down. Of course, we're talking about Jimmy Dore 2024. I have gone on record saying I didn't think that he was actually going to do it, that he was going to just kind of tease it for support to, draw out some ratings for his YouTube show, make some super chats, collect some donations. Then Nick Brana tweets this out yesterday, and I was like, oh no. I was like, here we go. Huge Dore 2024 update. Right before the Rage Against the War rally, Jimmy Dore told me he's going to run for president of the United States. Quote, people are ready and desperate for an honest, unbought candidate that unites the working class and people that span the entire left-right political spectrum based on shared values and a common enemy, the oligarchy. He said he wanted to announce it soon after the rally. I was incredibly proud of him. He was finally answering the call of thousands of people who have cheered for him to run at every live stream and stand-up show across the country since last summer. And here we go. Here's the other big doozy in here. He was recognizing his unique ability to bring the left.
Okay, so they're just reading this part. So let's skip through that and get to the commentary part here. So let's go.
For Jimmy Dore to run for president, this whole campaign to pressure Jimmy Dore to run for president, to me is incredibly suspect. Nick Brana is a known grifter. He's, of course, the guy behind the People's Party, which has not run a single candidate, despite the fact that it's been in existence now for 6+ years. If you guys remember, at the very beginning of the Vanguard channel history, one of the first things we ever reacted to and got some serious traction reacting to was the People's Party convention, where they had Jimmy Dore and Cornel West and Nina Turner, and like all these big name progressive people that were kind of from like the Bernie Sanders sphere. They got together and were like, this is the official launch of the People's Party, and did this big live event and raised a fuck ton of money doing it, by the way, a ton of money. And that was like 3 years ago. The Vanguard's been around for like 3 years ago, and this was one of the first things we ever seriously reacted to. They have not run a single candidate since then. Not a single one. They don't have ballot access in a single state.
Wow, it's still so.
And in the process, Nick Brana has
So
not
this
only
is the
been accused-
Vanguard today, literally within an hour of making this. So because some of the other content, when they said they haven't run a candidate and they don't have ballot access in a single state, that video was maybe 10 months ago. I think the David Pacman, not 10 months, less than that, but months ago. So this is current, up to date, made today, and they're saying they still don't have ballot access with anybody.
accused of sexual impropriety, straight up sexual assault. He's also been accused of just being a shitty manager.
Yeah, for me, the sexual assault part should not be a part of this conversation. So that's why for me it was not included. I know they're just kind of mentioning it and then going past it, but some of you may have said, "Well, I'm not bringing that up as part of my discussion of Nick Brana and NPP because it's based on his corruption and his leadership skills." And that's the attack point for me for Nick Brana.
An abusive boss. A myriad of volunteers from the People's Party have quit the People's Party and come out to fucking raise the red flags and be like, hey, by the way, this is a complete disaster behind the scenes. There's no financial transparency. Basically, this is a complete self-enrichment scheme. Like I said, volunteers leaving in droves, no accomplishments or progress made. And again, no candidates to run or to speak of. So the fact that Nick Brana seems so desperate to get Jimmy.
So far, it sounds like the Vanguard guys are at least, the Vanguard guys are kind of going down the path of what I'm saying. They're really going at Nick Brana and the People's Party as the critique in this. Let's see if they further critique Jimmy Dore as a candidate in general, or is it strictly about the People's Party?
Jimmy Dore to run for president is very, very suspect. Even if you want Jimmy Dore to run for president, even if you personally like what Jimmy Dore stands for, it should be a huge red flag that Nick Brana is the one that seems so desperate to make this happen. You never really hear Jimmy talking about this. When he's asked about it, he seems kind of like ambivalent about it. But Nick Brana really.
That is true. And that's the point I'm going to make. I'm going to refresh this. I don't know if it's their thing or mine. It seems unclear. But it should start right where it was.
It is very, very
okay.
Suspect.
It looked like
even if you want Jimmy Dore
bit.
to run for president, even if you personally like what Jimmy Dore stands for, it should be a huge red flag that Nick Brana is the one that seems so desperate to make this happen. You never really hear Jimmy talking about this. When he's asked about it, he seems kind of like ambivalent about it. But Nick Brana really wants it to happen. Nick Brana really wants it to happen. And that's because, like I said, Nick Brana is a grifter who uses Jimmy Dore to enrich himself. He uses Jimmy Dore's following, his popularity, and his reach to enrich himself and to grift off of his success, ultimately.
That is spot on. Spot on about Nick Brana is actually the same critique I had for him when they first said this about him running months ago. Same exact critique. I said, this is Nick Brana I didn't use the word grift because I don't use the word grift too often. But this is him trying to make money off of Jimmy Dore, and he's just using his name. And Jimmy Dore, being his friend, is like, your friend is like, hey, man, let me just say your name at the door so I can get this perk. And Jimmy's like, all right, man, okay. You get what I'm saying? So that's essentially the same sort of assessment I got. Let's listen more to the Vanguard guys.
So what Nick Brana really wants is for Jimmy Dore to bail him out and bail out the People's Party's lack of candidates, lack of ballot access, lack of organizing by giving them a crumb of credibility and giving them a crumb of clout by being their nominee for president, assuming that Jimmy Dore would run as a People's Party candidate. Which, by the way, in the past, Jimmy has teased that he might not. In the one segment Zach and I covered where Jimmy Dore was seriously entertaining the notion of running for president, he didn't even bring up the People's Party. He said he was considering running as a Republican, and then I think he was chatting with the dude from the Couch Potato podcast, Pasta.
Yo Pasta.
Yeah. And that guy was like, you should run as a libertarian. And Jimmy was like, yeah, that or a Republican. So seemingly Jimmy Dore doesn't even have any interest in running for the People's Party or as a People's Party candidate. But it seems like Nick Brana has a lot of interest in him running as a People's Party candidate.
Yeah. So maybe we'll cut this segment short. It doesn't sound like there's disagreement in the assessment so far. I haven't necessarily heard them say Jimmy Dore as a candidate is terrible, and here's the reasons why. I'm hearing this idea and being pushed mainly by Nick. And somebody in the comments earlier here in this conversation was saying how Jimmy Dore would just come out and say all of this if he was the one that was really trying to push this. But evidently he's not. And in a lot of our opinions, collective opinion.
Which raises a couple interesting questions. Chief among them being, if Nick Brana is just trying to fucking coronate Jimmy Dore, the nominee of the People's Party, does that mean there won't be a primary? Like, does that mean they're just going to do what the DNC did with Hillary Clinton and give the nomination to Jimmy Dore? Like, is there no democracy? Isn't this called the
This is a pretty good critique that I didn't think of. Yeah, is he just get the nomination? There's no primary process. That's how the People's Party gonna. But we know they don't have ballot access. He can't run for the People's Party. And if he announced for People's Party, that would be him essentially saying, "I know absolutely I'm not trying to win." And that could be fine. Maybe you're saying that's not the whole key. The whole key of what I'm doing is trying to spread the word for some policy positions.
People's Party? You think like a populist movement? One that's trying to offer an antidote to the anti-democratic, duopoly would at least want to have a fucking primary and let their members decide who their nominee would be instead of obviously putting their thumbs on the scale behind the scene for one guy, Jimmy Dore. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm still waiting for the horizontal leadership structure to kick in. I'm still waiting for they're not going to announce a single policy for the People's Party until it's been voted on by the members of the People's Party. And I guess that just means they're never going to fucking release any policies because there's not been any effort to have any voice or input by those volunteers, even the on the ground volunteers, right? Like we've had Renee Johnston on our show multiple times. She was an initial on the ground supporter, volunteer for the Movement for a People's Party in their New York City chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And immediately she started connecting with different people. There was a gentleman from Philadelphia we interviewed. There were individuals in the Los Angeles, the primary People's Party chapter, right, that were all coming out and saying like, hey, none of the stuff that they are talking about happening, none of the horizontal management structure, none of the voting, none of the transparency that they're, all the time talking about as the forefront of the party. None of that's taking place at all. We had them all on our show. And then, Jimmy Dore came out and said that those people were all paid agents and smeared, people that were just doing smear jobs over it, and that they were going to expose those people with ironclad evidence that, of course, never emerged because they didn't have any, right? Because those people were telling 100% the truth. And now, yeah, you're completely right that he wants Jimmy Dore to add more credibility to his horseshit People's Party. And I don't think that I think that a lot of people are right. Like even Brent Pham, number one troll of the Vanguard, apparently is in cahoots with Jimmy's staff, who, for what it's worth, who fucking knows if that guy was serious, but, saying that Jimmy won't run. And that kind of shores up my theory that he's perfectly happy to receive the adulation. He's perfectly happy to see all those videos come in of people crying and cheering and talking about how Jimmy just needs to change my life, all that kind of shit. Because he's a megalomaniac. He's a narcissist. He stopped following us on Twitter recently too, because I think I was just
see how now you hear why he's upset, because he stopped following them. You just listen long enough and you'll hear what the problem was. Just like we listened to Jen Perlman. Oh, he didn't shout you out. That's why you're upset. And you just heard You just heard here that they were unfollowed. But they're going down with this PMC train, plane, whatever name we want to give them. They've chosen to say, "Hey, I'm going down with this stuff." There's a lot of disagreement. Don't think that I'm not seeing it, everybody. There's a lot of lively discussion about different things in the chat right now. So, very interesting, but happy everybody's having um, a good time in the chat. I needed to take a break from what they were saying, so let's see what else he's saying here. Actually, no, let's end it there, so that I can get to the Bernie part, because it kind of it ties together. Bernie Sanders pushing Joe Biden left. If you haven't seen the article, the Guardian article, we'll be covering that next. But let's go to some comments. So we're gonna go from here. From what is it? 4:44. Is that your time? Yeah, 4:44 Eastern. 1:44 Pacific. From this time on, answer the question. Do you support, or would you support Jimmy Dore running for president? And would you support him if he ran with the People's Party? Now, I know it's kind of an illogical question because you can't really, because there's no ballot access, but answer it in a sense so we can talk about it. And I'll post up your comments, but we're starting from the timestamp 4:44 and on. So that's where I'm going to start. But anybody who has answered the question, do we think Jimmy Dore should run? And do you think is it okay for him to run with the People's Party? I mean, you can explain it, but the actual question is: do you think he should run? And would you support him if he ran with the People's Party? Do you think he should run? And would you support him if he ran for the People's Party? These are yes and no answers, or if you want to elaborate, that's fine too. Let's see. I'll start at the bottom, I guess, here. Kurt Boss is through and blocked. I don't know what that means, but Jimmy shouldn't run because he doesn't want to. That's always a good reason not to run. You don't want anybody being dragged to being ran. So that is a fairly good point. And where do we leave off here? Okay, so nope, he shouldn't because it's too risky. Jesus, 2024 doesn't answer the question, but okay. People's Party is not where it needs to be. If Jimmy were to run, I think Green would be best to give him a real shot. Like that point? Say, yeah, why not? I guess that's why, yeah, you would support him. I guess that's what I'm reading into it. Yeah, and RBN should be Jimmy Dore advisors. Jimmy's advisors, is what you literally said. Run, Jimmy, run. So I guess that's a supporter. Anyone saying he shouldn't run, why? I would say he shouldn't run as MPP. Definitely. I would add that point. And then I'll give you what I think. What's up, Johnny? I haven't seen you in a while. In the chat, at least you haven't commented in a while that I've seen. Nothing to do with Nick Brana is on the table. So that answers the question. That's a no. Yes, and I'm assuming that's yes to everything. And you answered already. Jimmy Dore is through. I'm thinking that means like finished through. You say no and no. No, he shouldn't run, and no, you wouldn't support him if he ran the MPP. And here's Paul. We talked to Paul earlier. Paul, Jimmy Dore and his substance is more important than whatever issue you guys have with Okay, so his substance is more important than any issue you guys have with Brana and MPP, which is still very vague and murky. It's not vague and murky. It's only it's people like when people say it's complicated. It's never. It's not that. It's you make it complicated. You make it murky by picking and deciding, you know, what to believe or not, and what to hear. But it's very easy, and people said it already in both of these videos that we watch. They're corrupt. The money, there's no transparency with the money. Where did all the money go that has been donated? There's no candidates. There's no attempt to get anything done. So why do you have a party? Is it a party or a shield to make money? So if that's murky to you, Paul, we can't help you here, sir. This is not the right place for you. Maybe you should go over to Jen Perlman. We're literally not the place for you, sir. So if you're still murky, because I don't have any fucking grace for people who support Nick Brown or MPP. I don't give a fuck about you whatsoever. So if you're here trying to do that, maybe you need to check the fucking segments I did and whole streams I did and bring in professors on this topic. I'm not that person on this fucking topic specifically. So if you're a Nick Brana fan, you can literally go jump off a fucking bridge. Don't give a fuck about you whatsoever. I hope that's clear. I can't get any clearer than that. But let's continue. Electoral politics is the trap set by the PMCs. Yeah, I'm not the diplomacy one. That's Sabby and Nick. We literally talk about this in an interview. I mean, in our meetings, I'm like, no, the people, the face of RBN is Sabby and Nick, because those are the ones that are able to get in these. Like, I ain't for that shit. I ain't for none of it. I ain't faking for your fucking ass. Like, I'm done for yo doing things for your fucking feelings. Fuck you. So, hope that makes it clear. Jimmy Dore is a Nick Brana fan, so some enjoy jumping, CJ. Some people just don't like Jimmy Dore because he hurt feelings in his criticism, or he exposed some faults that people are not too ashamed to deal with. Yeah, and people can dislike Jimmy Dore. That's completely fine. We had RBN members that wasn't the biggest fan of Jimmy Dore's when they were here, and they never said nothing about it. But behind the scenes, they told us all the time. So, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, Nick Brana fans are around, MPP fans are around. I don't talk about it because I don't know much about it. I don't know what the split is, and it's the same thing with the Green Party. I don't like the COVID shit. I don't really get into, because to me, it's really people who have no idea what they're talking about, all giving receipts that they can't fucking explain. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't got time for none of that shit at all. So that's generally, Paul, why I don't cover it. I generally don't. I stay away from even watching segments on COVID. My wife keeps up to date as far as the health of our family. So if there's any information coming in, like, she's really good at reading CDC and all that stuff. But is there any information coming in that's health-wise that we need to do? But as far as covering the story, I literally avoid COVID and vaccination stories for that reason. Just a bunch of people that don't know what they're talking about, including me. Yelling at each other. I don't find that to be interesting. And the mandate question is not debatable to me. You know what I'm saying? It's not a debatable thing for me. So you believe what you believe on the mandates, and I believe. But no, I don't know what the mandate issue is on MPP. I have no idea what the issues are with them. But I think we've prolonged this story, and I'm not gonna include all of these comments and when we cut this segment, but we've been talking about this story for long enough. Let's piggyback and bring in, it's sort of related but not a related, meaning we're talking about Jimmy running, and now we're talking about the last guy who ran, who a lot of us supported, and what he did to push the so-called neoliberal that he asked us to support left. So that's this article. I kind of see it related. If you don't, my apologies. Then we'll just say it's a brand new story. But this is related to the previous story to me. I mean, it's a mute. I mean, do we really need to even answer this question? Of course. Let me read it. The headline says, has Bernie Sanders really helped Joe Biden move further left? And of course, all of us know that's a no. Hold on 1 second. Has Bernie moved Joe left? And that'll be the title of this segment that we're going to get into. So before we get into the article, actually, I didn't give you what I thought about Jimmy Dore and if he should run. So let me give you that last part. So it's my opinion that I don't think, if I was advising Jimmy, I would not advise him to run. And it would be two reasons. No, actually, I don't need to give specific reasons, but his wife not really backing this is a huge reason why I would say not run. The second thing is, somebody mentioned before, his health. I don't know if he has a health problem, but he is having Aaron Mate fill in. I think that's more of a traveling issue. But somebody mentioned because he's been missing time. So if he does have health issues, because he was injured by, and everybody knows, I don't need to say the name because YouTube will say something, but he did get an injury from recently medically. So I know he's dealing with that, and I don't know if he's talked about it because I haven't heard it. So a lot of you may know more information about that than I do. But I don't think he should run for those two reasons. If there is a health issue, yeah, why do it? Specifically, why do it? Why run with a slight health issue or severe? I don't know the severity. Slight to mild to highly severe issue, just to run under the People's Party. Like that seems like a anticlimactic to me. The other thing is, unless he was going to be doing this to hand off the movement to somebody else to lead, or if he was just going to continue doing this movement building. But I don't want it. It shouldn't be, if he's just going, I'm just going to run for president, and then that's the end. Then I don't think he should run. So those are like three kind of reasons why I wouldn't say if he should run. Now, if he ran, I do think he should run as a Green Party candidate. I think he would win, even through their process. I think he has a high likelihood of registering a lot more people to the Green Party and getting the nomination through the Green Party. I think he could do that. Now, would I support him if he ran for the MPP? I absolutely would not support any candidacy from MPP. But again, if he chooses to run as MPP, then that's him signaling he understands that there's no way that I'm going to be winning in the way that Nick is trying to say he could win. Nick Brana, that is trying to say he could win. So I think that would be him signaling that. So I forgot to add that part. So I'll make sure to add that into the segment. But now let's go to this brand new topic, and it has Bernie moved Joe left. We got up to about 450 people watching. Let's see where we're at with the likes. The other thing is our Substack. If you want to get notifications when we go live, when we have special guests, anything we do on YouTube or any of our platforms as far as media, join us. Subscribe to our Substack so you get notifications when we do that type of work. We're at 418 likes. Can we get to 450? That's about another 30 people. We've had 1,300 unique people view this stream, so we have plenty of people that have not liked it. With 418, which is great. But let's push to 450 on the likes. Join our Substack. Thank you for joining our channel. If you are a new member or subscriber, 31,500 we're at. And lastly, we have memberships now. $3.99 memberships on YouTube or Patreon, scrolling down at the bottom. If you rather give the same $3.99 to Patreon, or even less. Patreon, I think you can do $2 as low as $2 on Patreon. So check that out. Now let's go back to where are we? Let's go back to this, and that's, has Bernie moved Joe left? And we'll start here with it, Aaron. Has Bernie Sanders moved Joe left? This is a new article from The Guardian, and I'll read the headline. Has Bernie Sanders really helped Joe Biden move further left? Now, before I answer the question, I'm going to get all of you in the comments to answer this question. And I thank you for all the super chats I'm getting. I'm going to save all of those to the end. Answer this question, though. Do you think Bernie Sanders has moved Joe Biden left? And if you do think he has, name what it is. So if it's like, we moved Joe Biden left on student loan forgiveness, I'm sorry. If we move Joe Biden left on whatever the other thing is. Before I get into the article, I'm curious to know if anybody thinks that. If you don't think he has moved them left, just say, Bernie hasn't moved him left, and I'll put that up. Bernie has not moved him left, or some variation of that, and I'll put your comments up. Right now, at the top of the hour, 5 p.m. is 5:05 Eastern, 2 p.m. where I am. Thank you for those that are watching. And now let's get to the comments. I was just buying time to get comments here. All right. Bernie gave him, I'm not sure. Bernie has moved right. Bernie has moved right. NATO left. Answered the question and said, no, Bern votes for all the Ukraine funding. So I think that speaks to a lot of the comments of saying Bernie Sanders moved right. Bernie won't even travel through the left wing of the White House. That's funny. That's funny. That's funny. Bernie has joined the right wing with the rest of the Democrats. To answer the question, no, Biden has moved Bernie to the right. And I would say that's a correct assessment. Bernie did not move Joe left. Joe moved him to the right. Bryce just answered the question. Nope. If anything, Bernie moved more right wing. So it seems like a lot of us are on the same page. Oops, this one. Bernie went right. That's an interesting thing. We should make a poll. Maybe we should construct a poll for later. Bernie left us on the scene. Let me see. Bernie bent the knee in 2016. Any other ones? Bernie pretending to be left at first, but the opposite happened. Bernie couldn't move a soccer ball left at this point. Bernie is a clown. Not even a little. Joe moved Bernie towards the right. So it feels like a lot of us are on the same page when we're talking about whether or not, and I'll give you my assessment. Absolutely not. I mean, because Bernie Sanders and other progressives chooses to team up with the Democratic Party, when the Democratic Party moves right, they have to move right with them. Otherwise, they're out of step with them, and they're out. You know, they're put out of the kitchen, sort of. They're put out of the hall, the dinner hall. They're on the outside looking through the window, and they don't want to do that. This is why Bernie Sanders is so for NATO funding. This is why some progressives are now fine with voting for the Iron Dome, and several votes breaking a union strike. You have to do that if you're teaming up. Just think, would AOC have to break a union strike in the squad if they weren't part of the Democratic Party? Wouldn't the answer be no? They wouldn't have to. So let's go into the article and see what they say. And I think this was written a couple of days ago. Again, this is on The Guardian. It's in the description box. The link to this article is in the description box. The senator's relationship with Biden has proven constructive with an ambitious agenda, but some Sanders aides and supporters offer a mixed verdict. So just from that, it sounds like they're about to try to walk this line and act like he has done some good, is what it sounds like to me. And this is by David Smith in Washington. I'm not sure why it says in Washington. Something I don't know. But this was written on the 27th. And let me see if I can make this bigger. I could make it extra big for those watching on your phone. You can almost read along. I want to make it that big for you to be able to see. So let's go into this question even further and reading this article here. Oops, let me make sure everything looks good. Okay. The band played on the road again. The New York studio audience chanted, quote, "Bernie, Bernie, Bernie," end quote. Senator Sanders was making his 16th appearance on CBS's The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, trying the record set by comedian John Oliver. Colbert confronted his guest with a card bearing a provocative headline. "Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders," end quote, from a Wall Street Journal column that argued the president was effectively be running for a re-election as a Democratic socialist. The host as Sanders, "Was this news to you?" And that is Biden, because it says Joe Biden is Bernie Sanders. Of course he's not. Bernie Sanders is not even Bernie Sanders. With a hearty laugh, Sanders, 81, recalled that after the 2020 Democratic primary, his team and Biden had joined forces to produce an agenda for working families. They did not agree on everything, but put together probably the most progressive outline that any president had introduced since FDR. A reference to Franklin Delano Roosevelt New Deal in the 1920s. So Bernie Sanders is running cover for Joe Biden being a progressive candidate so that we can squash any sort of left candidate or any candidate to his left. You notice AOC and all these in progressive, Pramila Jayapal. Oh yeah, his State of the Union sound progressive. Now Bernie Sanders is coming out saying that they crafted some sort of progressive agenda that was executed. Why are they doing this now? It's to stave off progressive challengers. Let's continue. Oh, I'm down here. Nearly 8 years have passed since Sanders, an independent senator from Vermont, launched his first run for U.S. president. The economic populist outsider rocked the establishment as he mounted a fierce challenge to frontrunner Hillary Clinton in the Democratic primary. Sanders lost, but put issues such as class inequality, universal health care, and the negative effects of globalization in the mainstream political discourse. This is why we don't need Marianne Williamson running again, because it's already there. He's already put it in the discourse. 4 years later, Sanders ran and lost again. But whereas the battle with Clinton had turned bitter, their mutual apathy palpable, the relationship with Biden proved constructive. Has it? The president included progressive voices in his administration, and along with his chief of staff, Ron Klain, committed to keeping the door open to Sanders and his allies. So we have articles like this and outfits like everybody knows the Guardian is the PMC is slightly to the left of Jacobin, whose Jacobin is liberal straight up and down. Progressive. So these are progressive sort of entities that are putting out these nonsense. So that's why this is so favorable to Joe Biden and this push to try to act like Bernie Sanders accomplished something. The upshot, now back to the article for those listening, the upshot has been an agenda more ambitious in scope and scale than many imagined, and a Democratic president working more closely with progressives than Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama did. I mean, this sentence is complete nonsense. Complete nonsense. The upshot has been an agenda more ambitious in scope and scale than many imagined, and a Democratic president working more closely with progressives than Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama did. And Bernie Sanders is fine with being used as a shield to shield Joe Biden, the neoliberal. But Sanders' aides, alums, and supporters interviewed by The Guardian offered a mixed verdict, welcoming Biden's faith in government to deliver, a repudiation of Ronald Reagan's trickle-down economics, while expressing frustration over setbacks on healthcare, progressive taxation, and other issues. Few dispute that Biden and Sanders share an authenticity and do not come over as polished, scripted, or elitist. Faz Shakir, chief political advisor to Sanders, recalls that during the 2020 campaign, many Sanders voters said Biden was their second choice and vice versa. Just retelling history here. Biden was not, well, they didn't say that. Many Sanders voters, many. So they're not saying the majority of Sanders voted said that Biden was their second, and they're not saying the majority of Biden voters, because that would be an overstatement. If you're just saying some, there were some. They've been single digit overlapping. I guess there could be some. But let's continue. Quote, Biden has a kind of plain speak about him, he said. Quote, that is also the style of Bernie Sanders to relate with a working class person. Not to suggest that I know more and I'm super smarter than you, which occasionally does happen from the people who have more advanced degrees, become schooled in technocratic talk and start using various abbreviations for government agencies. After Biden won the nomination, the president and Sanders appointed 6 joint task force that came up with a 110-page policy document. Secure described Biden's team as a pleasure to work with and said he would move in a progressive direction both during the campaign and as president. So this is, again, retelling the history of this panel, this joint task force that accomplished zero. Just a retelling of a story in order to craft this narrative that Joe Biden is now some sort of progressive. And to the point to where even some people over at the Majority Report, I've even heard out of Emma's mouth talking about how Joe Biden is some sort of progressive now that Bernie Sanders is saying it. They follow Bernie Sanders lockstep so closely, and you can tell in their policy positions. Let's continue with the article. Now 80, Biden was long perceived as centrist and moderate, who would not challenge the status quo. He represented Delaware for 36 years in the U.S. Senate and served as Barack Obama's vice president. He has made much of his belief in bipartisanship and still speaks warmly of Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader in the Senate, who has thwarted many liberal dreams. But he is his friend. Yet with a gossamer thin majority in Congress, Biden has also pulled off 4 big wins worth trillions of dollars: COVID relief, a sweeping infrastructure law, and massive boost to domestic production of computer chips, and biggest climate law in history. So the Guardian is also going to pretend like the Biden administration is doing something effectively or doing something substantially or anything to help climate change. That's what we're doing at the Guardian now. He won further goodwill on the left by withdrawing U.S. forces from Afghanistan to end America's longest war. Why is the Guardian leaving out that he's starving those people? This article is astonishing. The professional managerial class over at the Guardian, boy. Let's try to push forward though. Shakar identifies 2 major influences. First, Sanders' insurgents campaign in 2016 and 2020 built a mass movement that attracted millions. Quote, Biden was not clueless as to the need to make sure that if he was going to win, he needed all those people in his tent, and he's been a good coalition builder in that regard, end quote. So even Shakar, I think that's what you say his name, is participating in this rewriting of history and this covering of Bernie Sanders. of Joe Biden and the shifting of the Overton window. Bernie Sanders, oh my God. It's just truly astonishing to me. Let's continue. Then there was an accident of history, an opportunity in crisis. Quote, when COVID came along, it was just affirmed that to the extent that we needed government solutions to address crises in America. They needed to be progressive. The politics changed in a big way such that people were needing and desiring and wanting government action. As a result, he's been able to pass a bunch of legislation that shows government is going to be a very big, strong actor on the scene in a way that hasn't been seen in decades. Oh my God. I'm a little caught off guard about this, because this line that Joe Biden is progressive is literally new. This is literally new since the State of the Union. This is the NATO left, man. They just never cease to amaze you. Adam Green, co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee and ally of Senator Elizabeth Warren, agrees, quote, the COVID crisis gave Joe Biden a permission structure to think bigger and a bit differently than he did his entire political career and made him more open to fully baked progressive solutions that had been worked on for years and were very fitting in for the movement. Are they now trying to act like Joe Biden did something good with COVID? What is happening here, people? Let me go to comments. This feels like the Twilight Zone. This feels like Bizarro World. What are they talking about here? Let me see. This is why we need to let terms like liberal and progressive and woke go. They mean nothing now, as they've been totally hijacked. You can tell when Joe is knowingly lying because he prefaces it with, I'm not lying. The NATO left, ha. I can't believe the retelling, Shakir, Bernie Sanders' former political advisor, is participating in it. Majority Report and Emma is participating in it. Of course, you got corporate media participating in it. And now you have The Guardian all trying to act, and Bernie Sanders trying to act like Joe Biden did anything or was anything that resembles being progressive. Astonishing and surprising for me. Maybe some of you are not surprised, but this is absolutely surprising to me. TJ, what he is saying is that because of COVID, Biden had some revelation and became more open to leftist policy, which is a crack of shit. Oh my God. Thank you for breaking that down for me. But that is just nonsense. Let's read a couple more quotes and close this out here. This is just nonsense. Quote, the idea of helping workers and helping businesses keep workers, the idea of helping parents take care of their kids, the various solutions that were passed in reaction to the crisis were not made up on the fly. They had been percolating for years among progressives and ended up setting the tone for Joe Biden's entire presidency. And I'm going to vomit right now. I'm vomiting right now. As the party has shifted left, Biden, an old school pragmatist, was willing to shift with it. I'm vomiting right now. I'm vomiting in my mouth right now. Last year, he announced a plan for student loan forgiveness that was a sham from the start. He has pledged to take on corporate greed and malfeasance, like the Democratic Party voting to keep dark money in their primaries. Stand with workers at Amazon and everywhere and revive American manufacturing in left behind communities. Does this include voting to break a strike? What kind of shit is this? Truly amazing. This is written by David Smith in Washington, and you need to come out to Washington if this is what you write. Staying in Washington. Wow. I would normally say go read this, but this shit is the retelling of history right here. Astonishing. It's just, I mean, I'm shocked. I'm truly shocked here. Truly shocked. And I'm shocked because there are some articles I choose not to read ahead of time on purpose. This was one of them I chose not to read on purpose. The other ones I've already read because I do like to get my natural reaction for a lot of these articles, but I must say I was not expecting this. I was absolutely not at all expecting this whatsoever, what I read here. I need to just catch my breath here. The mental gymnast. I don't know if PMCs really believe this stuff though, or they're just choosing to aspire to different, to move the goalposts with their beliefs and policies to fit with, the Bernie industrial complex apparatus moving. We're at the cusp of hitting 500 likes. We're at 496. Let's see if we can push to 525. And we've had 1,474 people come through this stream. So plenty of people to hit that like button to get us to that point. Yeah, Guardian. I don't. Man, that was completely caught off guard with that. Completely caught off guard with that, I must say. So, but let's get into another short story, or this is a short story. I said another, but this is a short story. Before we do that, hit the like button. Make sure you join our Substack. Notifications of when we go live, when we have clips. Thank you for those who are subscribing and still subscribing to this day. 31,500 subscribers. We now offer memberships, $3.99. Make sure you get one of those memberships here, or if you prefer to go to Patreon for your support, you are more than welcome to do so. So what we're going to do now is get into this next topic, and that is House supports sanctions. So, and it was an overwhelming vote. So we'll start here, Aaron. House, including the progressives in the House, including all of the progressives in the House, support the sanctions, and they support starving people. They support starving regular people who have nothing to do with their government. That's what they support. And I'll read this headline from antiwar.com, and this article is in the description box if you want to go read it for yourself. House overwhelmingly approves resolution to maintain Syria sanctions, or I should say Syrian sanctions after earthquake. Let's read. And this is curious. Only Reps Tom Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene voted against the resolution. The House this week voted, and actually, let me make this a lot larger because I know a lot of people watch this on your phone, so I like to make the writing big enough for you to see if you're watching on your phone. So let's make it really big here. The House this week voted overwhelmingly in favor of a resolution to maintain sanctions on Syria following a devastating earthquake that killed at least 5,900 people in the country. The Cradle reported on Wednesday. The resolution was introduced by Rep. Joe Wilson, Republican, and received 51 co-sponsors. It passed in a vote of 414 to 2. Only 2 Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tom Massey, voted against the measure. The resolution calls for the Joe Biden administration to remain committed to implementing the Syrian Civilian Protection Act of 2019, a law that imposed crippling sanctions on Syria that are designed to prevent the country from rebuilding after years of war. The resolution that the government of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was falsely claiming U.S. sanctions implemented the aid response to the earthquake, but it's a fact that the U.S. sanctions hurt the relief effort, something that has been detailed by the head of the Syrian Arab Red Crescent and UN experts. After initially claiming sanctions wouldn't hurt the relief efforts, the Biden administration issued a 180-day sanctions exemption for transactions related to earthquake relief. UN experts responded by welcoming the move, but said it wasn't enough and called for the sanctions to be fully lifted. The resolution said it mourned the victims of the earthquake and portrayed enforcing the Caesar Act as a way to protect the Syrian people. But even before the earthquake, U.S. sanctions on Syria were having a devastating impact on the civilian population. This is pre-earthquake. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken acknowledged in 2021 that it was U.S. policy to oppose the reconstruction of Syria, and the policy hasn't changed. Business Insider covered Greene and Massey voting against the resolution, but completely mischaracterized the bill. The report said they voted against mourning the 50,000 people killed in the deadly earthquake in Turkey and Syria. So when you add Turkey, that's when that number goes up. And made no mention of the number of deaths for the earthquake, that is, and made no mention of the fact that it supported maintaining crushing sanctions on Syria. Of course, the Business Insider did that. The Biden administration has said it's against regional countries upgrading ties with the Assad government, even if it's part of an effort to aid the relief. That sounds like a good country. On top of the sanctions and imposing Syria's engagement with its neighbors, the U.S. maintains an occupation force of about 900 troops in eastern Syria and backs the Kurdish-led SDF in the region, allowing the U.S. to control about 1/3 of Syrian territory. The area the U.S. controlled is where most of the country's oil resources are, keeping the vital resources out of the hands of Damascus. And they're stealing about 66,000 gallons or barrels of oils each and every day of the 80,000 barrels of oils. You like that? So that's the end of that article. Very quick, to the point article, making a point about them doing what they did over there to vote for this. And it was 414 to 2. And the two people who voted against the resolution were Republicans. Marjorie Taylor Greene, again, to the left of the squad. But I'm curious about that article on the Insider, so maybe I'll go read that a little bit later. But we're going to close out this segment. Quick article, quick segment. We're going to close it out there. And let's now go to, let's see if we'll have time for this. This is a longer article, so we won't be able to read all of it, but we'll be able to read some of it. And it's about East Palestine and what's happening in East Palestine. This is from the Black Agenda Report. And this is East Palestine, Ohio, and the Oligarchy. And it's written by Margaret Kimberly, friend of the show. make this smaller? Is there a way to do that? I don't know if there's a way. Let's see. Okay, so I guess for this one, I can't blow it up as much. Okay, let me see how much I can blow it up. Let's do it there. Okay, so now let's just do it there. All right, so let's read this part, and it's talking about East Palestine, Ohio, and the oligarchy. And like I said, this one is written by Margaret Kimberly, friend of the show. East oligarchy. Am I spelling this right? Okay. Okay, so I think I got the title. East Palestine, Ohio. I'll fix that typo before we get started, Aaron. And a couple of other things. I'll fix. Now I think you got it right for the segment. East Palestine, Ohio, and the oligarch. And we can start here. East Palestine, Ohio, and the oligarch. This article written by Black Agenda Report, written by friend of the show and the guest RBN has had on the most, Margaret Kimberly, over at the Black Agenda Report. Let's just read a little bit of the article. It is a longer article, so we're not reading all of it, but let's read a little bit of what Margaret talks about here. A freight train derailment brought environmental catastrophe to a small Ohio town. While circumstances are somewhat unique, events followed a predictable pattern in a country run and for the ruling class. The U.S. is an oligarchy. Stating this fact explains events that may seem mysterious if this simple truth is not spelled out. So I love how she's going to go into this detail here. Let me put it on the comments so that I don't miss anything that might pop up here. All right, let's continue with the article. The ruling class are fully in control and ensure that their needs are met. They disregard the public good, and any claims of democracy are easily exposed as cruel hoax. Americans have no representation in Congress or the White House, and the corporate media are also part of the oligarchic class. They expose nothing that their partners in crime want to hide. Governmental actions and inactions in the wake of a freight train derailment exemplifies all of these dynamics. Oops. This article, you can also get the full link or read the entire article. The link is in the description box of this stream. On February 3rd, 2003, a 150-car Norfolk Southern freight train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio, near the Pennsylvania border. 20 of those cars were carrying chemicals such as vinyl chlorine or chloride, and these other chemical names I'm going to skip over. I don't know how to pronounce them, but you can see there on the screen. One doesn't need to be a scientist to figure out that none of these should be in the air or water. Despite, how do I get this to go down? This keeps going up. Where did I go? Let's bring this down. Yeah. Despite photographic and video evidence of an environmental catastrophe, the accident initially received little media attention. Nothing is covered unless the Biden administration wants it to be, and East Palestine didn't make the cut when there was war propaganda about Ukraine to stir up. Let's make this smaller. Make it easier to read. Let's take this down. Let's make this bigger. That should make it for those that are reading along. Here. Now let's continue. In addition, Biden had already made clear that the railroads are in the class of corporate untouchables who are to be placated. They are among those who were promised that nothing would fundamentally change, and he kept his promise to them by giving the derailment little attention. However, he did give these corporations all the attention they demanded. When railroad unions rejected a contract that didn't include paid sick leave provisions, the Biden administration forbade them to strike. There was a phony show among progressives about having made a good deal, but they were lying. Barack Obama excluded the railroads from a requirement that federal contractors provide paid sick leave. Biden could have issued an executive order changing that policy, but he had no intentions of doing any of that might upset the oligarchs, and the Democratic Party succeeded in presenting a false narrative. Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete as I call him, is Secretary of Department of Transportation and is responsible for overseeing rail safety. But he has made it clear that he follows his boss's dictate to change nothing that would upset their oligarchic bosses. As Department of Transportation Secretary, Mayor Pete has the ability to regulate corporations such as airlines in regard to their public service. When a series of Southwest Airlines snafus left thousands of passengers stranded during the holiday seasons, Mayor Pete made a great show of saying his hands were tied, just like he said in this instance with the rail. Back to the article. Of course, he is the one person who can direct the airlines or levy large fines. Mayor Pete was a no-show when the people needed him to act. It took Mayor Pete 3 weeks to show up in East Palestine, and he only did so after Donald Trump visited. The town residents may have been better off without him. When he arrived, he whined about the rail companies, quote, fighting us every time we try to do regulation, end quote. It is hard to believe that Mayor Pete makes any effort to fight back when corporate chieftains tell him what to do. And I'm going to leave it there for this article. If you would like to go finish reading, because I got to get going. If you'd like to go read the rest of this article, please go read this article written by friend of the show, friend of the network, Margaret Kimberly. Make sure you go over and check out that article over there. Now, on my way out, let's go to YouTube. I'm going to play a couple of things on my way out. But on your way out, please join our Substack. Where is our Substack? Right here. Make sure you join our Substack on your way out. Make sure you like the stream. Give us another 25 likes on your way out. And don't forget, we have memberships if you would like to have those memberships. And now let me read these super chats. And let me finish getting this ready here. And then I'll go ahead and end with these super chats before I head out. Let's see. I think I'll end with it. I've been using YouTube videos to end with, and it limits me with what videos I can play, because the videos on Twitter, they act up so much when you're playing them. So maybe the glitch has been fixed, but the last 2 weeks, Twitter has been extremely glitchy. So we'll see. This is still opening. Let's see. Yeah, so this is going to be the outro video, but I'm going to read the super chats for. Oops, this is not it actually. My bad, everybody. I have to scroll down a little bit. Yeah, is this moving? Yeah, gotta scroll down a little bit. Not sure what's happening. Let's pause. Okay. All right. So let me scroll down a little bit. Oh, it's a socialism video I have saved to reference. I could have swore there was a. Okay. So here it goes right here. I didn't realize it was so far down in the description, but this will be our outro video but we're going to go ahead and go to super chats. So let's go to super chats, everybody. And this is where we will start once we leave here. So super chats is next though. I start all of them, I believe. So let's start at the top. Yeah. These two were on due dissidence, and the guy on the left blamed the East Palestinian train derailment on Trump when in fact the 4R Act of 1970 under a Democratic control Congress passed, which deregulated the U.S. railroad industry. Well, thank you for the super chat. And so that I thought I saw them on something else. So that it was due dissidence that I saw Jan Perelman on. I didn't watch it, but I saw the picture of it, the little preview of it. So I want to be a real deep dive into if People Party is being smeared or is it actually a Brano Griff. So far, it's been murky and vague accusations. Yeah, I've already covered that. The vague I've already covered that bullshit. Like, I don't got time for this bullshit, man. I truly don't got time for this bullshit. Yeah, like I don't have any patience for Nick Brana shit or MPP, especially people trying to pretend like they don't have any idea what the critique is and that is murky. I have no patience for that whatsoever. Joyce is the RBN angel investor. Then we have if we don't develop a mechanism soon for introverts to take the stage and then disappear forever, we're exposed as just not legitimate proletariat power. Thank you for all of the super chats. Hang on a second here. I thought there was another one. Let's scroll up here. Is that when I start? All right, I think I got all of them. All right, so I think I got all of them. I wasn't away from. Let me look at here. Tips. Okay, so on Rockfin, we have K, and that's spelled CA, gave us a $5 tip. So thank you, K, for your tip on Rockfin. All right, so thank you everybody for watching. Give us a like on the way out. We will probably clip. Somebody in the comments earlier asked, and I forgot to answer this. We'll probably clip. Typically, there's a day in between before the clips for the stream come out. So the stream I do today, the clips won't come out Friday, but they'll come out Saturday, like that. All right. So I'm out of here. Here is the outro.
It has been said that I have two alternatives: either go to jail or go to the army. But I would like to say that there is another alternative, and that alternative is justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
He refused induction on the grounds of his religious convictions on war.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some poor hungry people in the mud for big powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger.
You know, Muhammad Ali is really important in this because when Ali refuses induction, there's a famous column in the New York Times written by Tom Wicker where he just wonders out loud what would happen if you had 100,000 Muhammad Alis. You had 100,000 people who were prepared to do what Muhammad Ali just did. You would bring this war to a stop. So the draft resistors set that kind of as the goal.
It took an all-white jury less than a half hour to find Muhammad Ali guilty of all charges and specifications. He was sentenced to the maximum, 5 years in prison, and was fined $10,000.
I find nothing amusing or interesting or tolerable about this man. He's a disgrace to his country, his race, and what he laughingly describes as his profession. He has been found guilty. He is out on bail. He will inevitably go to prison, as well he should. He's a simplistic fool and a pawn.
Do you share the same concern that Muhammad has for his draft status?
Oh, I certainly do. My views on the draft are very clear. I'm against it. And I think the sooner our country does away with the draft, the better it will be for everybody.